Good afternoon, friends. I hope this daily connection finds you well. For this Sunday, we're going to continue on with the Gospel of Matthew. And in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 11, verses 16 through 19 and 25 through 30. In this passage, we're hearing about how Jesus is responding to the information that John the Baptist is in prison, and Jesus is able to relay some information to John, and then John is able to relay some information to Jesus on the outside. It's like this giant game of telephone, you might say. And in the midst of this, it's very easy to see that it is a very tumultuous time. People are trying to figure out who is telling the truth, who to follow, who not to follow, who is the God that is going to provide compassion and grace and love. And there's just a lot of volatility. It's the Roman Empire. There's a great deal of oppression and taxation. There is just a lot of turmoil going on. And in the midst of all of this, Jesus says, "Come to me, you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And I think on a day like today, or in a time such as this, to be told to rest, to find rest in the Holy One, to find rest in God's grace and love, is something that gives me hope on this day. Every day is different. I suspect we all have had numerous swings through this pandemic and during this time of unrest and unsettledness and unease. As we try to figure out and to make a way out of no way, where to find rest. How do we find rest in our own spirit? How do we find a moment of rest with our God? Even though when we read the scriptures, when we especially read the gospel texts, Jesus's ministry at times was not restful, but it is also to say that even in the midst of great struggle, in the midst of great questioning, we are not good to anyone unless we find moments of rest. And I think that's what Jesus was getting at in this passage for this Sunday that we'll hear more about, is how do we find intentional time, intentional Sabbath time. So what are you doing in these days to find intentional Sabbath time? I know one of the things that I've been doing is I've been reading some fiction. I love reading mystery books. And I've also, a spiritual practice of mine is puttering out in my garden and getting dirty, and also going for long walks. Those have been moments of rest for me, even though at some level I have to be moving. It's just how I'm wired. But I'm able to disconnect, so to speak, and find a matter of wholeness with myself and with God. What are you doing these days? Are you taking an intentional time to have a cup of coffee at a social distance with a neighbor? Are you calling a loved one? Are you writing letters or journaling? Are you taking moments to walk? What are you doing in these days that offer rest? When we take time to reflect and to sort through all the things that we are facing as individuals, as a community, as a country, in a volatile time such as this, Jesus still speaks to us and reminds us to rest. So my friends, on this day, may you find moments of rest. May you find moments of clarity, and may you find moments that you are able to fill your spirit. God loves you and cares about you. God sees you and calls you by name. May you find peace on this day and in the days ahead. And I'll see you tomorrow.